A Dota 2 match often seems like a chaotic 45 minutes of fighting and bashing each other until one team accidentally takes the enemy ancient and wins the game. But there's inherent logic to Dota and to Dota matches, and that's why I created this flowchart, which will slowly bring you step by step to destroying the enemy agent. Now, this is looking a bit overwhelming, so why don't we go step by step? I'm gonna start by talking about the different phases that I've listed here that will slowly lead to winning the game. So every phase starts with the laning phase, and I split it up into two sections. So the first section, that's something that we're not going to talk about in this video because everybody is doing their own stuff. This video is about what should you and your team manage to do during the game to inevitably go high ground and kill the ancient. So that's where we're starting at this second laning phase, where the laning phase for the first time is kind of getting split up and people want to move around the map for a bit. There's also a post laning phase that is like between the moment where people like actually leave their lane entirely and the moment where they still kind of want to hang on to their lanes. Midgame now is where lanes definitely don't play any role anymore. And I split it up in two sections as well. One section is centered around Tormentor and the other section is centered around Roshan. And then there's the late game. The late game is centered around the second Roshan, and obviously late game can go on forever, but I'm not going to go into details on like decision making in the late game. There's a beautiful video by Squixotics who did tremendous work. He did tremendous work with a flowchart for late game decision making, and I highly suggest that you watch it. You can find it. I'm gonna link it in my bio. Okay, so let's go step by step through each phases here.
Little advertisement break. I'm advertising myself and my coaching and this channel, and I would love for you to follow and subscribe. It helps the channel grow and make this work. Thank you so much.
So this first phase that I want to describe is laning phase 2. This is starting at 5:45, and the reason for this is that at 6 minutes we have the first power rune of the game. And obviously you can't start running towards this at 6 minutes because you need to kind of plan ahead and also think about the time that you need to get there. So 5:45 should be the time where you think to yourself as a mid laner and also as a side laner that now power runes are spawning, and this means that either your support will leave or that you want to venture towards the rune. As a mid laner, this means that you need to go for rune control. This can also mean that you might be able to be ganked by the enemy if he gets the power rune, or that you might get a gank from your own mid laner. So this is like the first time really something is happening on the entirety of the map. And what you should do as the support and as the mid laner is secure this power rune. As a side laner, you should not feed while your support is away looking for the power rune. Only a minute later, you have wisdom shrines. And wisdom shrines again is something that often looks like just both 4 supports go for the wisdom shrine and that's fine. But sometimes there are like fights around the wisdom shrine, maybe with the power rune on the mid laner, he wants to contest the enemy wisdom shrine. So this is something you need to look out for and need to figure out how do we want to deal with wisdom shrines in our game. This should also be something that you should be planning ahead, like minute 6 and 30 seconds, something like this. So after wisdom shrines, laning phase is not entirely over. Like the offlane and the carry still want to hit lane creeps, so you want to reset the map and like go back to a normal laning state. And this you want to hold until the post laning stage begins. The post laning stage is beginning around minute 9, and the reason for that is that your offlaner will most likely have hit his level 6, and this often means that he has a big power spike, enabling you to play around him and get decent kills, and especially an objective, meaning the enemy safe lane tower. So this is what this post laning stage is all about, to focus on this tier 1 safe lane tower and destroy it. I keep talking about this over and over again, but destroying the enemy safe lane tower opens up the map for you in a way so that you can play in the enemy jungle. And it gives you a lot of freedom of where to play. If they are on your side of the map, you can go into their side of the map. And if it's the other way around, you still have ways to play on your side of the map. But if this tower is there, it's very difficult to play there, very difficult to get kills there. So this should be your focus for like 9 to 14 minutes. It might take 2 attempts. Maybe you, like a usual scenario would be, like I'm main Mars and I get my level 6 in like minute 9, and then I get my supports and we arena and kill the enemy carry. And then we try to get the enemy tower down, but we don't kill it like all the way because it's still full HP. So we wait for the next iteration of my arena and we just do this again until we kill this tower. So it might not work like in one smooth motion, might take a couple of attempts, and should be the overall goal. Now I don't want to say that this is the rule that always needs to happen. Sometimes you want to focus on the mid lane tower, sometimes there's a carry that is really difficult to boot out of lane, or your off lane lost extremely hard so you can't really play with them. Means that you kind of need to adjust, but I'm talking here about the ideal way and like the main ideas you want to follow in order to progress the game. So then 14 minutes we have Wisdom Shrines again, so the map is a little bit reset again, and we now have this block of 3 movements that I want you to do next. We took Wisdom Shrine, we took the enemy tier 1 tower, and now we need to control this area that we just basically gained in destroying the enemy tower. Because if we don't make any use of the creep camps and the waves that are walking around in the enemy jungle, then it didn't really like do us anything to get this tower. So we want to control this enemy jungle, place some wards, play around the vicinity, keep the waves, especially this safe lane wave, pushed. From there, your next idea will be to get the tier 1 mid lane tower, obviously assuming that this tower is still up and running. If you already destroyed the mid lane tower, hooray, then you can just play this area and farm up. If the tower is still standing, you can smoke up with your team and get a kill around the mid lane area and then go into this tower. This also means that you are kind of clumping on the mid lane, meaning that you need to re-establish this jungle control afterwards, because you're like moving away from the area to focus on the tower. This should be like a motion where you establish control in the jungle. From there, you want to kill the mid lane tower and then make sure that your jungle control is still intact. And the main reason for this is Tormentor. So Tormentor is an objective that spawns at 20 minutes on the Dire side, and this is very convenient for the Radiant side because the Radiant, as already said, probably has already control in this jungle and from there wants to go Tormentor. For the Dire, it has a little twist because you will have control in the Radiant jungle and you want to still go for the Tormentor. And there are 2 ways to do this. Either you can twin gate and then like steal it away under their noses. Like if you manage to be actually there at 20 minutes, like a lot of players will be surprised by this and don't really think about the Tormentor at all. So if you make your team think about Tormentor that early so that you are all ready to go take it, you have pretty good chances of taking it. And if you can't straight up steal it, you can again go for a smoke play into a kill and then into Tormentor. Now, let's assume we took Tormentor pretty easily, and what we now would love to do is the following. We smoke and get an objective-based team fight. And the objective that we have in mind here is Roshan. So there are also other objectives that you can fight around, but the main one would be Roche. What I want to say about this in general is that in the mid game, we're like at 21 minutes, like the first BKBs are coming in, and people are pretty decently at their farming speed with the items that they have. This is often a time where fights break out around the map that don't really contribute anything to progressing this flowchart towards the destroyal of the Ancient. And this is something that we want to avoid. So we want to focus on fighting around objectives. That means around towers, around Roche. If you're fighting under your own ward, this is also fine. A ward can be like an objective where you either protect the ward or like they run into your ward and you can all kill them, so this can be good. But it's actually, it's towers and Roshan. Obviously it's also Tormentor when Tormentor is back up every 10 minutes. The reason Roshan is the most important one here is because we essentially took the most important objectives already. If you remember, we already took the tier 1 safe lane tower and the tier 1 mid lane tower. And then there's still one tier 1 left on the off lane, and that one doesn't really bother us. If we can take it, fine. If we don't, if it's difficult, we don't really need to. If we want to progress the game, we need to either get a very big lead by having gold, or we need to get more objectives, meaning the tier 2s. And obviously this is becoming increasingly difficult. And the way to do this is with an Aegis. With the Aegis you can siege tier 2 towers, and with the Aegis you can farm a lot more aggressively. So even if you don't get any towers from the Aegis and you just farm with it, you can still use it in an aggressive way that is giving you a bigger lead. So the earlier you get this first Roche after the Tormentor, the better. So the ideal way would be to go fight with the smoke into a Roshan and then get these tier 2 towers. Now finally, we established a lot of map control. You want to focus on acquiring some key items. As I already said before, there's a lot of potential for being distracted and getting into random fights, but actually it is this time in the game where you need to get some key items for your hero or for the game that are essential for the course of the game. So if you don't have a BKB yet, this is your time to get one. As a support, this is where you get the important save items that you don't yet have. This is where you get the kill items as the carry. Like, this is where Juggernaut wants to get his butterfly. This is where a mid lane wants to get this damage item or this control item. After establishing all this map control, focus on getting the lead that will actually allow you to transition into a late game that you can convincingly win. Talking a lot about Roshan here, the way to go high ground is with this second Aegis. Just like before, progressing the game without Roshan for like tier 2s is kinda weird. And the same goes for high ground. If you want to go high ground and you don't have the Aegis, it's kinda sus. So this is the next objective for you. And the way you want to do this is again go smoke and ideally find a good kill around the Roche pit or at least in the vicinity and then take this Roshan. Now this Roshan is opening up a bunch of possibilities for you into the late game. As I already said, this will not cover like all the options of the late game. I again want to recommend this Squixotics video. These are some basic ideas. The second Roche often enables you to play the map very freely so that you can choke the map, meaning that you kill all the waves, so all the waves are pushed in. You ward so that you have like vision when they want to leave the high ground, and you like farm the entire map while they cannot leave the base. Whenever they want to leave the base, you chase after them and push them away or kill them. And this inevitably will give you the lead that enables you to go high ground. If you have a very strong lead already and the lanes are already pushed, you can also go with the Aegis straightly into high ground. But I really like the play of like using a couple of minutes of this Aegis to like just close the map down. What I colored in green here is my favorite way though, which is you get this Aegis and then you play the map. And what you want to do is you want to smoke and find a team fight outside of the enemy base. And then if you kill them outside, you can go high ground very freely. Now inevitably all this needs to go into the high ground push. I have a video about how to approach the high ground, so we are not going to cover this here. But yeah, this is the final idea that with the second Roche you want to go high ground. Obviously, late games are messy, and you might need a third Roche, and like can't just end the game at that point. But I think the important thing is that from this point onwards, there are essentially two objectives, which is Roshan and high ground. There's also Tormentor that is going to be up every 10 minutes, but Tormentor loses relevance at that stage of the game, even though it's like nice to have. This is the entirety of the idea. Actually structure your game by reasonable objectives and not just by impulse and fights and creeps. Alright, so much for that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.